that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The newest show sensation streaming throughout the multiverse. Your hang place in cyberspace for paranormal news and views. Taboo Topics with Gene Broida.
Welcome, everyone, to Taboo Topics with Gene Broida. I'm your host, Gene Broida, also known as Lightworker 111, beaming to you from sea to shining sea across the Americas and the world every Sunday night between 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States and Canada on my Taboo Topics YouTube channel. Head over there right now and subscribe. I'm also found at tabootopics.life/shows and simulcast on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com. Panelists on Taboo Topics with Gene Broida read news articles about paranormal events, conspiracies, and other hush-hush subjects that we all probe further before moving on to the next taboo topic. And on today's show, please welcome our guest panelists, Barrie-jon Bauer, all the way from across the pond in England. He's a logistics consultant who describes himself as outgoing. He's a deep thinker. He's logical. He sounds like Spock from Star Trek. We'll know more soon. And also, please welcome Junior Estrada. He, very interesting, techno-paranormalist. He's also a show host here on Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com with his charming wife. He describes himself as an optimist. While delusional, he's also loony. And welcome. You sound perfect for our panel of paranormalists who will range far and wide. But before we go any further ranging, Barrie-jon Bauer, please take a moment or two, share a bit about yourself with our global audience.
Well, first of all, thank you, Gene, for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here with you and Junior. Obviously, for me to get my my story heard a little bit. First thing about me is I'm not a researcher like many of the guests that you have on your show. Basically, in 2017, I died in an operation. And when I woke up from that operation, my reality was not quite the same again. So from that point on, over these last few years, what I've done is basically travel the world via Facebook, via YouTube, via email, talking to many, many other people who have sort of gone through something similar to what I have. Call it what you will. Many call it an awakening. Some of us, something different has happened to us, which I'll go into a little bit later on. But what this has done is led me on a journey, and a journey of self-realization, a journey of a new reality and a new life, based on this one experience of, let's say, call it a near-death experience. Many of the other people that I've spoken to as well, I've had near-death experiences, have had similar encounters and experiences like I have. So what we're doing at the moment is all coming together, all putting a picture together, and yeah, just trying to go out there to the world now, trying to get our stories heard, and go from there, really.
Tell us about your life before NDE, near-death experience, just a bit, just what you feel comfortable sharing with our global audience.
Before this happened, I was a logistics consultant. I had my own business running international, running freight throughout the UK, basically stuff that will come in via the airlines or via sea freight. I love my music. I was a bit of a raver. I didn't know anything about the paranormal. I didn't know anything about what I know about now. I was completely oblivious. Let me call myself, I was a sheep. I didn't know anything of what reality was. I was, as most of the population, as the main percentage of people, just going along with the plan, obeying the situation that's put in front of us, not questioning, not ever looking beyond what I was shown. And from that point on, like I say, my life after 2017 just wasn't the same. Couldn't go back to normal. Could not go back to normal.
I'm really looking forward to hearing your article, which is about your experiences. Before we get there, though, let us spend a moment and get to know Junior Estrada better. Welcome to Taboo Topics with Gene Broida. Junior, what up, man? And tell us about yourself.
Well, I mean, with me, I really didn't get into the paranormal field until about a couple years ago, when I had a restless, I want to say, teenager spirit living inside my house. He'd love to push people over. He loved turning on the smoke alarms, lights, switches, move things here and there to make himself noticeable. And it wasn't until I actually caught a kind of floating mist deal in our security system on our phones that I was like, okay, we have something here. And he's been here ever since. He don't bother us anymore. He's like one of the family. So I kind of use him as a trick when people come over. I just tell them, hey, stay quiet, and then the couple move.
So I'm not coming over, all right? I mean, nothing. Well, actually, I guess it would be personal, but no, I don't cotton to cups moving by themselves. But I could dig it that you've found peace and harmony with a being who perhaps has just as much right as you to occupy the same time space or overlap, right?
Well, Gene, the way I see it is, the way I think of it is that spirits are also people too, just in an alternate dimension, and they have the same rights as us. If they want to live with people, and those people can live with the fact, okay, well, I have a living dead person living in my house, but is not gonna harm anybody. I mean, why send him, cast him out, or move him to another place where he's probably not going to be wanted?
And did this entity spark an interest in more general paranormal phenomenon, or this kind of phenomenon? Do you network with people? You have a support group? You know what I'm saying?
It actually did, Gene, because, living in southern Texas where we live, we have a lot of Hispanics, and Hispanics are prone to the paranormal field. Anything is like, it's bad, okay? It's a ghost, it's this, it's that. It's some kind of demon, it's some kind of devil, it's an angel, it's a spirit. And so growing up, that was always, it was there. And just knowing that, okay, well, I have a spirit in my house. I've tried everything. I've had contacts with different paranormal groups, different techs, and some of them gave me some good hints on to figure out whether if it is or not. And then finally, we just came to the conclusion when we saw him on the camera that one of the techs gave me from a paranormal group, and we showed it to him, and he's like, wow, he looks to be like a teenager. So He's like, it's your call. We can have somebody go in and, you know, outcast them, or you can just learn to live with them. And ever since then, it's just like, I want to find out more about this. So we just cater to buying tech, creating tech, tinkering with tech to figure out the paranormal field further in.
So when did you notice this teen presence? What year?
Actually, in 2019, when we first moved into our house.
And when did you capture the video, the mist?
The video was caught in late 2019, a little bit after Thanksgiving.
And did you see even more clearly? Is that what you said?
It was pretty clear. It looked like it was a mist, but you can see a person standing in that mist.
So you don't think there's any chance that this teen is being held up on his spiritual path, being earthbound?
And that's where my wife would come in handy. See, my wife's also paranormal. She's actually more of a psychic empath. So she kind of talks to him, but he taunts her.
Oh, so here comes the taunting. Did he start it?
Yeah, he actually, I don't know what happened, but he would push her around at first until she put her foot down. And now he just comes around and talks to her whenever he needs somebody to talk to or whatever.
Well, you know, I want to have her as a panelist on the show. Maybe next week.
I can probably get her to do it.
Well, that'd be awesome. And if you just tuned in, you found us, Taboo Topics with Gene Broida, broadcast every Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern in the U.S. and Canada on my YouTube channel of the same name at tabootopics.life/shows and simulcast on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have a lot of fun on this show. And let me just introduce myself briefly. We've heard from both Barrie-jon Bauer and Junior Estrada, esteemed panelists on the show. I am your host, Gene Broida, and I have been a lifelong UFO researcher, not even quite sure why, but like a lot of people, impelled to research and study the topic, which holds a lot more fascination for me than, say, cryptoids or ghosts. And I have been part of an exorcism, thank you very much, which is why I asked about keeping spirits back as opposed to helping them forward on an evolutionary path. And I don't mean to point any fingers or accuse anybody of anything. I'm just commenting on where I'm coming from. And I have such a fascination with UFOs that I suspect I was abducted as a child, but I don't claim it. And I've always resisted the idea of having hypnotherapy for this sort of remembering, whether it's a block or whatever, I don't know. In any event, I decided to channel all this creative energy that I have after decades, literally, of research. And I wrote a book available on Amazon, Unknown Objects, the Top 10 U.S. UFO Cases, starting at the end of World War II with Foo Fighter sightings brought back to the United States from the European and Japanese theaters. Strange lights, orbs in the sky that could literally fly circles around conventional aircraft on both sides, Allies and Axis. And then later famous sightings and abductions, including Betty and Barney Hill, Travis Walton, and ending up with the Phoenix Lights incident, 1997. So it's all last century, but notwithstanding, any more current sighting that you see tends to have aspects very similar to these cases, which is why I selected them as a top 10. And, you know, I could write many, many, many top 10 books about UFO cases because there are so many. And most recently, as I talked about last week on this show, the United States government, as in the Pentagon, authenticated the 3 leaked videos from 2014 and 2005, as I recall, taken by Navy pilots, Navy personnel, who said these are genuine UFOs, not of this earth. They maneuvered in ways that conventional aircraft simply couldn't do. And they're like boiling kettles boiling over. They need to release this. Well, actually, that information was leaked, but once it was leaked, these guys weren't denying it. They were saying, yes, that's a real thing. And so now, years later, a year or two later, the Pentagon has said, well, yes, we declassified those and we validate them because, first of all, they want to show that their personnel are not flipping insane, just like the rest of us were all those decades for believing in UFOs when we knew darn tootin' that our own governments knew they were real. Okay. So Pentagon has come forth and said, well, there was no threat from those videos because they don't reveal anything about our current systems, meaning our radar and our technologies from the pilots themselves in the aircraft. There's no threat that it'll have anything to do with any future sightings of unknown objects. So they're sort of implying, well, we expect there'll be future sightings because there are so many now, and there have been so many for so long. These things are everywhere is what I'm getting. We have constant daily sightings. That's what Navy pilots say. We see them every day. So now they can talk about them apparently without being fired or branded a nitwit or a nutcase. And that's good news. But what we're seeing is that many, many, many people around the world, these truth seekers and starseeds, are waking up in consciousness and not only questioning government suppression of these great truths. I call it the big lie. The idea that UFOs aren't real and that we're all nutters to believe it, that's a big lie, a big fat lie. And a whole lot of policy is spun off from that. National security policies is spun off from that. People are getting hip, and not only getting hip, beginning to really question authority and demand truths, not only about UFOs. If they lied to us for over 70 years about UFOs, what else are they lying about maybe today, COVID-19? Just saying that fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And how many times do they have to fool us, they being federal government, no matter where you live? Almost everywhere in the world, governments are like, no. And I have to say, Latin American countries seem to be more pro-disclosure, more candid about, yeah, our military did see stuff that showed up on radar, and being more confirming and confirmational, standing by their military personnel. The United States deplorably turned its back on military personnel for quite a long, long time, implying that they too were crazy, even despite deathbed disclosure and real life disclosure, contractors coming forward. I'm thinking about, well, many, many contractors coming forward. In any event, these are remarkable times. People are awakening at this incredible rate in numbers never before seen on Earth that I know of. And certainly all of us here assembled today hope that you'll enjoy these topics that we bring. Our intention here is to shed light on the dark corners of reality as we know it, get those cockroaches skittering, and let's start talking about taboo topics. I am very happy to lead off with our first taboo topic. This is an article that I wrote for thedailyconspiracy.com. I'm a regular contributor as Lightworker 111. A light worker brings light to those dark corners, flushes out the cockroaches, and 111, for me at least, represents synchronicity. It's no accident that we're all here talking about this stuff. So for thedailyconspiracy.com, on November 22nd, 2017, it's been a while, I wrote an article that's timeless called Praising Patriot Phil Schneider. And here we go. Of all the people who have claimed direct knowledge of U.S. government clandestine activities, few are more intriguing than a self-styled patriot named Phil Schneider. Do not be surprised if this name is unfamiliar to you. After only 2 years in the mid-1990s giving federal black ops whistleblowing lectures around the country, Schneider died an unsung hero, if his testimony is to be believed. The story of Phil Schneider's life, as he told it in his lectures, is nothing short of incredible. Yet he speaks convincingly and earnestly about the experiences that ultimately led to his death. Philip Schneider was born on April 23, 1947, at Bethesda Navy Hospital. His father, Oscar, a U.S. Navy captain, worked with nuclear energy, including Operations Crossroads, which tested nuclear weapons by blowing up the Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. Schneider said his father was also part of the grisly 1943 Philadelphia experiment, where the U.S. Navy destroyer escort USS Eldridge was claimed to have been rendered invisible or cloaked to enemy devices using theories developed by Nikola Tesla. When the ship decloaked, crew members who had dematerialized along with it rematerialized dead, some with parts of their bodies embedded in bulkheads or other solid objects. And by the way, some of them were still alive, at least for a while. A trained geologist and structural engineer, Phil Schneider began collecting interesting rocks as a boy. He told the story of going with his dad to visit a colleague who was working on reverse engineering UFOs. This man showed the eager young mineral enthusiast samples of a substance that had congealed on the test pad after dripping from a hovering UFO. Schneider asked his dad's friend if he could have one for his collection and kept it for the rest of his life. According to Schneider, scientific analysis showed that this strange rock was composed of both terrestrial and non-terrestrial elements. He collected hundreds of strange rocks in his career. Schneider displayed some of his oddities at his lectures and invited audience members to examine them closely, along with some of the hundreds of UFO test photos given to Schneider by his father, which Schneider had recovered from federal government seizure. By his own account, Schneider helped build deep underground military bases, or DUMBs. At a time when the federal government denied such facilities existed, Schneider claimed he had personally worked on 13 of a total 129 multi-level cavernous underground complexes. The most astonishing story that Schneider told happened in 1979. At the time, Schneider was a government contractor who worked for Morrison Knudsen, Inc. He was part of a team building an addition to the DUM at Dulce, New Mexico. Schneider said it took him a while to get over the shock of seeing alien grays at work side by side with human Americans. The project had drilled 4 holes in the desert that were to be linked together with tunnels. Schneider's job was to go down the holes first in a mining elevator, check the rock samples, and recommend the explosives to use on the particular rock. One detonation blasted through the top of a large artificial cavern, releasing foul-smelling gases which should not have been there. The project leaders were concerned and curious, and so they sent Schneider down a mining elevator to check it out. In his lectures, Schneider said he looked around once he got down there and spotted a tall gray alien. He said he felt menaced and panicked. He drew his Walter PPK pistol and opened fire. More aliens came running onto the scene. One of them waved its hand in front of its torso, and a blue-beamed energy weapon hit Schneider in the chest. The lightning-like blast, quote, literally opened me up like a fish, burnt off my fingers, burnt my fingers right off me, burned all my toenails off of me, completely crispy crittered my left foot, burnt the right shoe right off me. Schneider said he killed 2 of them. Yes, they are mortal and they do die. Talking about these gray aliens, tall gray aliens. Schneider credits his life to a Green Beret who was right behind him down the elevator. Schneider fell in a semi-conscious state, but this brave man hoisted Schneider back into the elevator basket. The injured Schneider was raised to safety and got medical treatment for his wounds. The Green Beret lost his life protecting another's, the ultimate sacrifice. When the Battle of Dulce was over, 67 contract workers and military personnel, along with several aliens, died. Schneider was one of only 3 people to survive. In his lectures, he showed the scars on his chest from this battle. He believed his cancer was caused by radiation from the alien weapon. Once Schneider had proof positive that aliens exist, that our government knows about them and is covering up this world-changing truth, he quit his job. One of his friends convinced him to book some speaking halls and tell his story to the general public. That friend was Al Bielek, a crew member on board the Eldridge, who claims he time traveled and lived 2 years in the year 2749 before returning to the year 1943. These 2 men sometimes spoke about their personal experiences at the same event. Schneider focused on informing us, the people, about government cover-ups, black budgets, and UFOs. He said that in 1954, President Eisenhower's administration decided to bypass the US Constitution and form a treaty with extraterrestrials called the 1954 Grenada Treaty. The Grenada or Grenada Treaty allegedly gave humans ET high technology in exchange for alien bases on Earth, plus animal subjects, including humans, for alien genetic experiments. Under this pact, the ETs were supposed to limit the numbers of humans abducted and report regularly the names of all those taken to the federal government. But as we know from the mysterious birthday card received by high strangeness researcher Linda Moulton Howe, EBINs, or ETs, lie. The aliens broke the treaty and abducted thousands of people without reporting back to the government. This is why there was a significant rise in reported alien abductions during the 1980s. In his last public appearances, Schneider recounted several murder attempts by men in black suits in black cars. In one instance, he survived having the lug nuts removed from one of the front wheels of his car. Schneider called the Wilsonville, Oregon sheriff to escort a threatening federal agent from his home, and that led to a shootout, which led to the end of his life on his own property, shootout with law enforcement. And one theme that prevailed throughout Schneider's lectures was a warning to us, the people, that the democracy he loved no longer existed. The shadow government, which both Presidents John Kennedy and Ike Eisenhower identified as threats to American freedoms, was succeeding in creating their own covert power structure. Their objective is to impose their worldview, the New World Order, on the rest of us, whether we agree or even like it. Schneider told his audiences that 11 of his best friends with insider military information had been murdered in the last 22 years, 8 of whose deaths had been officially explained as suicides. Schneider stated publicly his days were numbered, because he had physical evidence of the existence of UFOs, extraterrestrials, and government lies and cover-ups. He predicted that the CIA would continue attempts to murder him until they succeeded. Schneider told his listeners that he was not suicidal. If I ever commit suicide, he told a close friend, I'll have been murdered. On January 17th, 1996, Phil Schneider was found having been dead several days with his own catheter wrapped around his neck. The coroner's ruling was suicide. So you can check out Schneider online. There are videos, there are lectures on YouTube and other platforms, and be prepared to be amazed by what this modern day Paul Revere has to say. So in closing, my hat is off to you, Patriot Phil Schneider. Once you listen to his videos, you see what a conspiracy synthesis this man was. He inspired me, that's for sure, connecting all sorts of dots, including the dumbing down of the school system, so that average people would believe whatever drivel and bad logic, bad science is tossed their way, from nutrition to the existence of UFOs. What do you guys think of all this? Have you ever heard of Phil Schneider? And what do you think about insiders who claim to have firsthand experience winding up dead, ruled suicide? That disturbs me. How about you guys?
Something being labeled as suicide.
Barrie-jon, I had you on mute. Start over, will you?
Well, that's not the first time that I've heard the stories of people, whistleblowers, coming out and being labeled as suicide. That you know, there's many accounts of this now, more so happening more often now than what there ever has been. You know, there is becoming more of, you know, some of the accounts that you hear on TV, as people dying all of a sudden. You know, you've got to question this sometimes. You think, was that a death, or was that something else? There just seems to be too many pieces adding up that just point otherwise, if you know what I mean. It just, everything's suspect. Like you just said there, Gene. Have I heard of him, this gentleman? No, not completely. I've seen his face. I did research a little bit earlier on when you sent it to me. I did hear of the boat that you were talking about, but I couldn't tell if that was actually real or not. That Navy boat. I was never sure if that was a real account or something that was actually made up. But it sounds.
You're talking about the Eldridge?
The Eldridge, yeah.
Yes, that was a real boat. I've written extensively on that, but go ahead, carry on.
No, and you know, I've heard about it, and again, what were they doing? Was it a time travel experiment? Was it a cloaking experiment? Look, from my own experience and what I've seen myself throughout my awakening and so on, I know these things are possible through light and vibration. Like I say, there's so many things that some of us have seen that this does make sense for, but you know, you still question it though. You know, what technology have our governments got, and how far back does this technology go? How long have we been lied to? You could say 70 years there, but I believe that the lies have gone on much longer than that.
Now you're in the United Kingdom, right?
I sure am, yeah.
And in the United Kingdom, are there UFO disclosure people, whistleblowers, say with physical evidence, who wind up dead? Do you have anything comparable there?
If there is, they don't make it because they die too quick, I guess. Our UFO network here is nothing like it is in the US. That's for sure. It's not so big here. There are obviously the people, but everything that we receive or we see, most of it does come out from the US side. So you know, we have got the David Wilcox and so on here, but again, all these people that you see in in the front at the moment, David Wilcox and all these people such as that, you question them as well. Are they telling the truth on all of it as well? Because they seem to be there at the front and nothing seems to be happening to them. Is it because they're such a public figure? I don't know. Is it because maybe they're putting their own spin? And I don't know. There's so many questions here that, it's who do you trust now? That's the difficult part. Who do you trust?
True that. So, Junior, what do you think? Phil Schneider, have you ever heard of him?
Honestly, I've never heard of him until now.
I'm not surprised.
It sounds like, that the government wanted him gone a long time ago, is what it sounds like. And, people out there say, the men in black do not exist, and they really do.
This man was trippy with this gun battle down below Dulce is trippy.
For somebody to find him wrapped with the catheter and rule it a suicide, I know firsthand, because I know people in the medical field. If you wrap a catheter and you try to hang yourself with it, it's gonna pop. It's plastic.
Yeah, and he wasn't hanging; he was lying in bed.
Exactly. So that actually rules as a murder. So
yeah,
maybe he had some kind of foresight to where he was already predicting that, hey, if I die and they rule it a suicide, I was actually murdered. So,
well, he did talk about having the the lug nuts loosened or removed from one of his front wheels so that the wheel would come off, right? The vibrations of driving would vibrate the wheel on off and cause a fatal car crash. So, and it's my understanding that the CIA has a playbook for its agents on, recommended or authorized ways to off people, to disappear people. I don't know if that's true. I can't vet that, but as a conspiracy synthesist, I run into that notion a lot. But
Gene, one thing that what I've found myself is there's a suicide where people are hanging themselves from their doorknobs. Have you heard that one? They're actually, these are famous people, they're actually committing suicide by hanging themselves from the door handle.
Famous people?
Yeah, these are, I'll have to get the names. These are famous people, and it has been registered down, and that's how they committed suicide. They hung themselves off their door handle. That's the door handle. You can sit from a door handle. So none of this makes sense, and these are true accounts as well, and that's not just me just coming out there. I just can't remember the names of the famous people that have actually gone down with this, but there are a few. They actually hung themselves, or it was written as suicide, hanging, and they hung themselves from their door handle.
Are you saying that that's improbable?
No, I'm not just saying it's improbable, but I can't see somebody who was going to commit suicide actually doing it off a door handle, to be honest. But that's just my own personal view, So it's just something that I've come across myself, and I've read, and it's just like, well, if that's going down as suicide, you can see that it's not. Not, or is it? I can't see it being, and you just got to read between the lines of these things. The trick to all this, I believe, is reading between the lines. A lot of it, isn't it? You have to.
So Schneider was one of the first insiders in the late 1990s who talked about scientists and military personnel working side by side with aliens in a subterranean base. And at the time, the government was saying there are no subterranean bases, there's no UFOs, there's no aliens, there's none of this stuff. And now there's no Phil Schneider, after 2 years of him running his mouth and showing his mineral samples that are extraterrestrial. What kind of, people, debunkers like to say there's no proof of UFOs. Well, there's no proof if the government keeps destroying it and the people offering it. Duh. And related to the disappearing act of UFO researchers, a disturbing trend now is the disappearing of people whose political or socioeconomic point of view is variant from the mainstream. And this has to do with healthcare policy, along with all manner of things that you wouldn't think, that you would wonder, why wouldn't we have free discussion about these kinds of complex issues to arrive at the best possible answer that satisfies the most people's needs, while treading on as few liberties as possible. But nobody seems to talk this way anymore. Hasn't talked this way in a long time. And what was refreshing about Phil Schneider and his lectures, and why I encourage everybody to head over to wherever that you can find a Phil Schneider video and check it out. The guy was a very informative speaker and authoritative about his subject matter. And if you do a search on him, by the way, just a keyword search on any online search engine, you'll find a lot of debunkers. There's a lot of people were paid to debunk Phil Schneider and say he was crazy, he was ill-informed, he had a hidden agenda, whatever that was, whatever that would have been, because he didn't get rich and he ended up dead. So he really had to be persuaded to come out about this, but he was very, very, very concerned, as many of us are today, about this erosion of our civil liberties justified by false flag events. And he talked about the rise of school shootings as a means to grab guns. So this is the kind of political synthesis that I got into based on his research and other people's research, that when you start looking at UFOs and UFO cover-up, there is a lot of crossover into a lot of other areas of society. And one spectacular synthesis is David Icke over there in England, Barrie-jon. What do you know about him, if anything?
Well, look, when all this happened to me in 2017, I started speaking out, and I was telling people what I'd experienced and what I was seeing and what was going on with me. And people were turning around going, are you sound like David Icke? And I was like, I've never heard of him. Yeah, and I literally had never heard of him. And then obviously I got to see some of his stuff and what he's saying and how he's explaining it. And he is completely right on all the fronts, on how the manipulation is working, how that these people who we think are people are not really people, they're beings. It's the manipulation that we've got to understand how deep it actually goes. And people are classed as being mad. You know, David Icke is labeled as being mad by...
I know, he was banned from Australia. Are you hip to all this, Junior? You know who we're talking about here?
I have no idea, but I am actually learning some new stuff here.
Well, let us clue you in. This David Icke, I-C-K-E, former politician, right, Barrie-jon? In London, he's wasn't he? Parliamentarian, or what was he?
I can't quite. I believe he was.
I don't remember either.
He was up there somewhere, but I don't want to say.
He was a minor politician, as I recall, and he was good. He's a good guy. He's a truther. And that's why the New World Order despises him. So he has woven this synthesis based on the literature that any other synthesis uses as source. And anyone using these source materials, I'm talking about Sumerian texts, Babylonian texts, Assyrian texts, Egyptian texts, ancient Greek, ancient Roman, all these ancient, and not just Western Europe, but China, India, and getting down into Hindu Valley cultures. Okay, this is all very complicated, but everywhere in the world, it's the same story going down, that humans were manufactured, basically bioengineered, to serve these aliens that humans began to call gods. I mean, compared to them, they were gods. And that royal people are descended from these aliens who happen to be of a reptilian stock that is really not that well disposed toward humans, rather indifferent, cold and indifferent, and can take us or leave us, and in some cases uses us as food. So Icke talks about blood cults based on the reptilian penchant for blood and ritual and sacrifice, this ritual that dates back to these sky gods who came down and bioengineered humans to work for them. worship actually means work for them. It turns out, when you go back to the ancient word roots. This is blowing my mind, and it blows lots of people's minds. So Ike has stitched all this together, and anyone else who's read these source materials, including myself, had stitched all this together and arrived at the same conclusions independently. But Ike is very able to weave a comprehensive and understandable narrative. He's detailed. He'll give a 4-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour lecture nonstop. It's remarkable, with slides all along the way. He leads his presentation along. He's nothing short of brilliant. But because he is so brilliant, because he's so well researched, and because he's probably right, governments such as in Australia are banning, and it wasn't the whole government, one woman in Australia, one legislator, one lawmaker said, no Ike, and persuaded all her cronies, enough of her cronies, to ban him, that he had to cancel his lecture circuit. He had booked halls, big halls, because people want to hear his message. So I get really excited when freedom speakers and truthers are muzzled by narrow-minded politicians who are probably working with the reptilians. I mean, it sounds crazy. It sounds nutty. And that's what Ike says too. Everybody says it sounds really bizarre, and do you really believe that? Well, when you look at these the pedophilia groups, and I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent, but according to Ike and others, the pedophilias involving royals and other big New World Order power people, movers and shakers, that they get a chemical from the adrenals, the adrenal glands, adrenochrome, and they drink this, and it gives them a high. It makes them feel like gods. And Junior, this is just nutty. Do you ever get any of this stuff? You say you're loony. How loony are you, my friend?
I'm pretty up there to believe that certain conspiracies are wrong. Certain conspiracies are way off. And this sounds like something that's way off. To where I know that the New World Order does exist, and here we don't call it the New World Order, we actually call it the Illuminati, which
right on.
People that are vast out of wealth, who can control and manipulate mass productions of people, TV, music, the whole 9 yards. They can literally take over the world by themselves, and they're doing it slowly. But what's stopping them are everybody who's actually tapping into their paranormal gifts, and they're just explaining the truth, and they can't keep up with it.
Oh, I think that's so right on. That's so true, Junior.
Yeah.
They can't keep up with us all. And there's a lot of power in mentalism, psychic intent. Huh? That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's so right on. Okay, well, I think we've whipped that topic. And again, hats off to Phil Schneider, American Patriot. Head over to YouTube and check this man out, although deceased, not forgotten. And if you just tuned in, welcome to Taboo Topics with Gene Broida, broadcast every Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. and Canada and around the world, of course. You can get to us live streaming on my YouTube channel, Taboo Topics with Gene Broida, at tabootopics.life/shows, and simulcast on Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com. Next up with an excellent taboo topic is, I forgot who's up next. It's Junior Estrada. Junior Estrada, am I right?
It would be
Junior Estrada. Shuck my corn. Thank goodness you guys know what's going on.
Yeah, it would be Barrie.
I thought it was Barrie-jon. You guys are yanking my chain. You're both excellent. Our viewers want to hear from all of the above. So, Barrie-jon, thrill us.
Well, Gene, my taboo topic is on the awakening. And really it carries on from what you were just talking about just then, about David Icke, about reptilians, and about the many of us who are out here at the moment who actually know that there's something deeper going on. And how we were given this information, how it all happened. There is a global awakening going on, and what I want to try and do now is just give a little description of what an awakening is from my view and from a couple of other people's views as well, to try and give it a totality about itself. So others like Junior there can obviously hear that there is something deeper. There's many levels to this than what people do see from the outside. So, right, shall I start for you, Jean?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, what I've called this is awakening in a nutshell. Okay. Right, it's from a collective point of view. Right, the first problem when speaking about the awakening is trying to explain it in its fullest. The experience is something that no words can truly explain in its integrity. So what I will do is try to not just use my words, but the collective words of others. And this is just not the words of a few. There are not a few, there are many. When I say the world is waking up, what do I mean by waking up? As this is such a loose term. The concept of waking up takes on many forms, is felt and is experienced differently by many that have gone through this soul-changing experience. But we all do agree that it's not an easy process to understand when it does happen to you. From what happened to me in 2017 until this point now has led me on a journey of self-discovery, but has also allowed me to cross paths with others who have had such a calling as I. Yes, it is a calling. We are all just following something that we were shown, answering a higher power, if you will. This does not make us any more special than any of you. It's just a circumstance to why we have been given this information to give to you. It's just the way it has always been. That's what we understand it to be anyway. But all these people are beautiful souls who have been through much in their lives. And all we want to do is tell you what we know because we care. Our combined experience makes us a whole. However, we have found that speaking out as individuals does not have the power as we would have hoped. We are easily and normally looked at as being mad or backbeat crazy by the many who are still under the illusion of society. We all know what's happened to us. We all believe what our own eyes have seen, but we also understand why the many do not get it as well. We would be nuts if we even thought that people would really understand what we have seen, unless it's really happened to you in person. All that happened to me was a merger of many things that others have felt on their individual journeys, meaning I've had a bit of everybody's experience. In short, in a short period of time, that changed my viewing of reality forever. I've only been awake 3 years, but so many have been carrying this knowing for 40 years or more. Well, in my eyes, that is impressive. As to carry this for so long, I could only imagine the pain and loneliness, as this is the most loneliest path that you could ever walk. And we had no choice to walk this path, as we were given this path to walk. Well, what I'm going to do now, this is a person that I know, Gina Marie Bettiger. Betger. Gina Marie Betger. She's from Texas. This is her little explanation of her awakening. Like I say, this is a short because there is a lot more to this as well. Today I look back and I think, what did my awakening teach me? Why did I wake up the way that I did? I was holding on to so much hurt and pain and being betrayed by so many people. This is a collective experience as well, Jean. A lot of us who've gone through this have had that happen to us. We've had a lot of trauma, a lot of experiences like this. Right, sorry, I lost my place now. Because pain and betrayed by so many people. Because of holding on to this, I was unable to embrace and enjoy my life fully. Instead, I dwelled on what could have and what would have. I understand why everyone is the way they are, and it's not their fault. In fact, we are in a spiritual war for our very souls to enslave the human race into darkness. I was shown how to heal the darkness, which takes a lot of self-love and forgiveness. My whole life, I always felt different. I never really fitted in. I had a very hard childhood. Throughout my life, I always felt something or someone was watching over me. A few months before my full awakening, my parents and ancestors presented themselves to me throughout the spirit world. This is still Gina speaking here, by the way. 2018, I died on my couch. Someone who I believed to be my grandmother from the spirit world put her hand up on my heart and began to twist and squeeze. I was hot, I was cold and convulsing. Energy discharging all throughout my body. I felt my entire heart explode, then blacked out. It felt like I had died to me. When I woke up, everything was different. I was told by my mind, by my inner voice, that I was a walking. Another soul, my other soul contract had ended. From this point on, I have followed this journey to being at a point of being right now. I know I am here to help humanity. I know how. I don't know how, but just how I will do it. Well, that's just one person there. I hope I explained that quite well enough. I hope I said her words clearly enough. This is another gentleman. This is a gentleman now I know called Christopher Shearer. He's from Washington. This is just, again, a short, quick view of what he has to say about the awakening. The best thing about waking up is definitely not floggers in your cup. Chris, I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm sure I will later on. The entirety of waking up is very mysterious and complex in being able to explain its overall process in a comprehensible way. The fullest explanation is just beyond the perceptions of the many, as I've attempted numerous times and have been called crazy or schizophrenic. That's going back onto the points that you made, Gene, earlier on just now, that people are just classed as mad when we've got a different idea of what reality is and, you know, what we try to tell people. I wholly agree. What I went through had the entire apartment complex assuming the very deprivations that get people killed or labelled as such crazies. Like me, Christopher and Gina, when you first go through the awakening, it's a very tricky process to understand, and you do come across as manic to begin with. It does sound like you're manic, and people don't understand it. But it takes a time for you as a person to understand what's actually happening to you as well. You've probably heard that story many times yourself as well, Gene. It takes a lot of understanding to get your head around this, basically. Being called a demon or possessed, which you will never understand how much that hurts when all you want to do is care and share. Part of the plot of these shadows, you know, the entities, the demons, however you want to call it, we know darkness moves in very different ways. You might have a better explanation of this after I finish this, Gene, that explains shadow work or these shadow beings, things like this that work to make our life harder. You might have a more understanding of that than what I do. Awakening means that you see the evil, poisonous world reality in its fullest, and the darkness that lies in plain sight for the many. This is hard to bear on your own. The separation from the true identity of the source consciousness or the flow of life has been one of the major contributions to the falling of man. I refer this to the Taurus as the second twin. The actual replication is identical to the original. Chris, you have to explain that to me again. I lost that one bit myself, mate, I think. So anyway, going back to me. So as you can see, there are many different experiences here, Gene, that we all shared. But what stands out is the lie of our true existence. And this is that is the why and why we are here. The hiding of our history, to cover up the true power of what we have as united consciousness, being self-aware of one's true self. My awakening was more of an arrival. It was more of a new soul that I was given. Some know it as a reincarnation, others call it a walk-in. But my explanation is a soul swap, a download. Yes, I said a download, but to understand the download in its fullest, you must understand the true nature of this reality to be able to conceive what this truly is and what an awakening truly is as well. Right, that's sort of it. I did go off a little bit, Gene, so I hope you understood that in its fullest.
I dug that. What about you, Junior?
I mean, that explains a lot, man. You know, and I agree with you, there has been tons of people that have had near-death experiences like that have awakened dramatically. I, on the other hand, have had 3 near-death experiences and have not gone what you've gone through, man. So for you to step out of your box and talk about it like that, I mean, big ups to you.
Well, thank you, sure, Junior. Thank you.
Junior, you had 3 near-death experiences and no downloads or any of that stuff?
None. I've actually been drugged down a staircase where I should have had my spinal cord cracked in half. I was nearly run over and held at gunpoint at one time.
Dang noodle.
Yeah.
Junior,
It's
do you think
odd.
that could be?
Go ahead.
Junior, do you think that could be why you're so spiritually, you're seeing these spirits? Do you think that could be any reason why you're in tune a little bit more?
No, I've actually seen spirits since a child. It's been out of just like the corner of my peripheral vision. So for me to like come hand in hand, I'm guessing that's where I decided to get into the paranormal field to begin with, to debunk that, okay, I'm not just crazy. I do see things out of the corner of my eye that are unexplainable. So that's kind of why I got into this. And then with my wife being what she is, it just...
And what is that for viewers who don't know?
Huh?
What is your wife for viewers who don't know? Christina Estrada?
Christina is actually a psychic empath. She does pick up on other people's emotions, and it doesn't have to be within close. As long as she has some kind of relationship with you as a friend or family or whatever, and you're feeling down, she'll grab that attention. And the kind of the spirit that lived inside our house, we actually named him Toby, kind of pushed her to begin with, to be like, hey, I know you see me, I know you can hear me, so I need you to listen to me. And that's kind of what happened to her, to the point to where he would push her around, do all kinds of things to grab her attention so she can pay attention to him.
But even before that happened, she was already acknowledging that she has psychic abilities and is empathic.
I think that actually the psychic abilities actually kicked in with Christina's near-death experience.
She had one too?
Christina's actually a 2-time leukemia survivor.
Well, right on. Good for her.
So
Junior, that's what I have as well. I have polycythemia. I basically, my blood's too sticky for my body, so my blood keeps clotting.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
It is what it is.
Healing. Well, beaming you healing. Sure.
Thank you. But no, Gene, one thing that I will say, that near-death experiences or trauma, or people who have had extreme lives seem to have been given the awakening, or have been given, or been touched by this more. But what we're finding is, obviously, because we're from that class of society where we're not classed as the people who people should listen to, because we've had these rocky lifestyles or whatever else. People tend not to want to listen to us because they want to go, oh, well, that's because you've had this lifestyle, or because you've had that lifestyle. And it's not. This is something that's real. This is something that's really happening on a worldwide level, and it needs to be heard.
I agree entirely, and that's why shows such as Junior and Christina's are popular, and this show is popular because average, everyday people who don't necessarily claim to be experts about anything in particular, but who may actually be experts in some things, just because that's what they've worked at their whole life, or studied their whole life, or they've put a lot of hours in, but without throwing a lot of ego around, saying, we're just plain folks. And yet we have had experiences. I don't need a government agency or some pundit to invalidate my experience or the experiences of other people. On the other hand, as a skeptic, I'm not going to take everything at face value necessarily. But when you get to know people, whatever happened to judging people by getting to know them and evaluating their personality? And I understand that there are con artists who can fake a Rooney and all this stuff with the right amount of will and cunning, deception. You can pull the wool over people's eyes. But on the other hand, a lot of people really are innocent, and something shocking and world changing actually did happen to them, to where, like you said, Barrie-jon, there's no going back. And Junior, it sounds like with you having reconciled with a ghostly type spirit, or let's just say a disincarnate spirit, whether it's a ghost or not, something out of body, that made peace with this thing, coexisting, cohabitating, and teaming up when unsuspecting guests come over. A lot of people would just label all of us here as completely off the wall, completely out there in left field and not credentialed. I have a master's degree in science and computer information systems, but does that make me a UFO expert? Probably not. How about the decades of research I've done on the subject? I would say maybe more so. And now I understand there's institutions that grant degrees, but the whole point is, who decides who's an expert? Well, in the mainstream, that's decided by governing boards, peer groups, and such like that. I get it. But when a topic is suppressed, or when topics are suppressed, and there are no boards to govern them, there are no legitimized peer groups. Any peer groups are ridiculed, shunned, shut down, people killed like Schneider. You know what I'm saying? That it's hard to have a movement when your leaders and people who just speak out, you don't have to be a leader to speak out. That's the beauty of the internet. You don't have to be a leader. You don't have to have a big ego to get a message across to people who have probably already reached that conclusion independently anyway. And so they're on board with the message. A lot of people say there's certainly no point arguing with people. And it's very hard even to re-educate people or convince people to change their point of view based on what they think they know. Even when you introduce new information, new evidence, it's very hard for many people to change their minds about anything, because in a sense, it's a blow to their ego that everything I know is wrong. And so, for example, I have a very close relative who shall remain nameless to protect her innocence, who could not watch 20 minutes of the sixth astronaut on the moon, Gordy Cooper, couldn't, or Buzz Aldrin, couldn't watch 20 minutes of his insider testimony saying that, there were UFOs all around when we went to the moon. She couldn't watch him. She couldn't watch Paul Hellyer, the former Minister of Defense of Canada. She couldn't watch these people, even though, because they were telling the truth, it was messing with her mind. It was threatening her paradigm, which was toppling all around her. She could, and bless her heart, she's elderly, 87 some years old at the time. So, still in all, she claims to be a rationalist and says science, 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 empiricism. Here's your expert testimony. Here's your science, as close as we're going to get. Documents crossing desks. People saying, I saw the stuff. Navy pilots. How real does it have to get before near-death experiences, all sorts of paranormal phenomenon are taken seriously, not as taboo topics? It's ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well, one thing people got to understand as well, Gene, is we don't say this because us saying this and what we have to say, it doesn't make you friends. Yeah, basically, you lose your family, you lose the people close to you, because suddenly, like you're saying there, you're given a different version of reality, which really upsets people. So if we were coming out and making this up for no apparent reason, and happy to lose all our friends and family in the process for a lie, then that doesn't make sense. Yeah, we're all coming out and saying all this because we're telling the truth. We're telling exactly what's happened to us in the best words that we have possible, to explain it. That's because there are some words that can't be used for this because it's physically impossible. There are no words to really explain it in its fullest. But we are telling the truth, and people need to understand that what we're trying to do is not shatter their reality, but trying to add a little bit extra to it. We're not saying that we're better than anybody else because we see differently. We just see something that they don't. And this is something that they need to see, because they're just ignoring it, and that ignorance at the moment is the thing that's costing humanity its soul, and it is, because it is just a blatant ignorance to the truth, and people don't want to research, Gene. That's a problem. You know, they go, "Oh, I researched." They didn't. You know, you give them this information, and they just turn a blind eye to it straight away and just argue. And like I said in the article there, they start calling you mad, start calling you names, and it puts a lot of the other people off who are waking up from coming forward, because they see the slander, they see the abuse that people like me have got or have taken over the years, and they don't want to come forward. They're scared. And you can see why.
Can indeed. A lot of people just don't like to be rejected, simply enough,
No.
by their family. What you just said, that I've seen families divide over the topic of UFOs. It seems a little silly to me in this day and age that would be the case.
Yeah, it's just because someone sees something differently and from to somebody else, it doesn't give a reason to completely hate the person. You know, it's just is it the word cognitive dissonance, isn't it? It's that fight or flight scenario that seems to occur, and it's quite scary, because we as people, you know, us awakened or light workers or starseeds like myself, we care, and when we're given that hatred back for caring, it's hard to understand. We just can't process it. You probably understand that, Gene. You probably felt that yourself. It's like, I'm trying to help. Why do you hate me so much?
Sure, I haven't been the recipient of a whole lot of hate, a lot of doubt, skepticism, and I, as a scientist, I can allow for that. Closed-mindedness bothers me. What about you, Junior? Do people mock you for having a resident spirit, or do you put them in their place when they come over and frighten the bejesus out of them?
Really, I don't tell them anything until I actually call upon them sometimes, and it's really funny for people that are like really skeptic, because I'd be like, okay, I'll just leave a random cup there, and then we can have a conversation, and out of their peripheral vision, they'll see the cup move a little bit, and they're like, what was that? And it's just fun from there. I take it as a kick, but people don't think we're crazy. They just tend to like blow us off and be like, you know what? I don't know whether that was a magic trick or if this is really real. But for someone that does countless hours of paranormal research and shows and all kinds of stuff, it's become life for the majority of us.
Well, that's the thing. It has become life for many of us, as you just said, Junior. That's really, really, really accurate. I'm not the only one who feels the topics are so important. These taboo topics are so important that it's really all I want to talk about. And I've said before that although I respect anyone who likes to scrapbook or something like that, it's not my bag. And I want to meet other people who've had consciousness experiences and who talk about what some people call mysticism. I don't mind calling it that. Psychic phenomena, otherworldly phenomena. I've just always found it very fascinating. And what intrigues me is the extent to which governments deny these phenomena exist, all of them, any of them, and spending taxpayer money quite often to prove these things don't exist, to debunk and ridicule anybody who says they do. What a waste of time, energy, and resources is my comment on all that. And what I like about you, Junior, and Christina, is that you're so laid back. I feel like Barrie-jon and I are much more evangelical about these taboo topics, and let's get people let's get people hurry up and ascend already.
Yeah. Agreed.
And like I said before, and I'll say again, if you just tuned in, welcome to Taboo Topics with Jean Broida. I'm your host, Jean Broida. We broadcast every Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. and Canada on my YouTube channel. Please head over there and subscribe right away. Be a founder. Then you can also get to the live streams from my webpage, tabootopics.life/shows. And the show is simulcast, thank you very much, on Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com, as is Junior Estrada and Christina Estrada's show. So please welcome here. This is the May 17th, 2020 episode, by the way, of Taboo Topics with Jean Broida. We have heard from myself and Barrie-jon Bauer from United Kingdom. Now it is our time to hear excellence from Junior Estrada. So, sir, please take it away.
All right. Well, we had such great, excellent topics from Barrie and Jean, so kudos to them. But, as a paranormal investigator, the one thing that really tricks us off is what energy can kick off paranormal, attraction. And majority of people saying, well, there's a lot of activity during thunderstorms, so as paranormal investigators, we wonder if a thunderstorm could cause an increase in the paranormal activity. And some say, when the thunder roars and lightning splinters and white hot flashes across the blackened skies, the haunts may just get glimpsy or relevant in pale light of the passing storm. Everybody knows that lightning is contributed to protons and neutrons. So current, charge, we get the hint here. So they say thunderstorms stir up energy in the atmosphere, and according to those who research paranormal activities, as myself, Jean, they must stir in ghostly manifestations as well. There's a lot of people who witnessed, hauntings, random sightings, spirits, orbs, the majority of all the time, manifestations during lightning storms, who they say had jumped an amount of increase in activity. Several paranormal groups have also said this, and it's just randomly called by how many people are called throughout the night, where there are people who have not done the awakening yet or have not had an awakening. They're witnessing this for the first time, so they're reacting to, like, say, if someone who has no paranormal gift or whatever, they see a spirit in their house, the first thing they're going to react is going to say, oh crap, there's a burglar in the house. It's during a thunderstorm. First thing they're going to do, they're going to call the cops. Cops are going to go over there and there's nothing. And it's just amazed on how this article was produced by the Pennsylvania Paranormal Association. So big shout outs to them for this article. And, they're not wrong. They are not wrong at all. With such amounts of energy that lightning can produce, can manifestate the presence of any spirit, whether it's malevolent, good, bad, child. It's going to manifest itself because there's so much charge in the air.
So that suggests that these phenomena have some sort of electrostatic or electromagnetic charge or properties?
For spirits to actually manifest themselves, it takes a vast amount of energy. So that's why when we go, spirit hunting or go to a haunted place, that's why you see, okay, you have 7 cameras that are fully charged before you got there, and then you get there, and out of this so many cameras, they're already dying within 30-40 minutes because these spirits are drawing this energy so they can say, hey, we're here, we see you. So when the actual spirits themselves, they feed off of energy, whether it's negative energy, positive energy, or just electrical current. which feeds off energy itself. So that way
they'll feed off humans then too.
Yes, they can actually feed off of emotional energy. That's why people sometimes they live in a haunted environment. They're like, oh, I don't feel too good. I feel very weak. I feel very drained. It's because they're draining all your emotional energy.
That relates to something that Barrie-jon mentioned in his article. By the way, thanks for bringing that, Junior. That's really thought-provoking, and I would want to, as a science geek, I would want to get more into that. Barrie was talking about how there seems, in some cases at least, once the veil has been lifted, if you've had a near-death experience or you recognize that you have psychic talents and have strengthened them intentionally, or you're just naturally strong that way, okay, that it isn't all petunias, it isn't all roses. There are negative entities, there are negative consequences to having the ability to tap into the matrix or other realms of existence, right? Mm-hmm. So I would think if we're talking thunderstorms as having as being what they facilitate, they help entities manifest or they become energized, it creates an energetic field, right? Or something along that line?
Yes, ma'am. Because a lot of paranormals believe that because of the neutrons and protons that are actually helping the spirit trying to manifest itself to get a full form to show itself. That's why when there are not any storms in the area, a lot of paranormal teams use Tesla coils.
Oh, I want to hear all about the Tesla coils. And I'm thrilled that you called me ma'am. Nobody's called me ma'am in a long time. So thank you. No So how did Tesla coils come in? And tell viewers who don't know about Tesla coils, just a little,
Tesla coils are just the, I want to say, humanic way of conducting electrical currents. Instead of using natural current as lightning, Tesla, Dr. Tesla actually created these coils to manifest a high frequency portion of electricity rods that actually can manifest sound at sometimes. So, if you get a high enough frequency in an electrical current, it does make noise.
Junior, I don't know if this is any good for you. I actually know somebody who actually makes Tesla coils, big ones as well.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, because here I've tried to create my own and it fails.
Send me a request after the show or whatever, and I'll give you his contact details and that. He actually makes them and sells them. So,
what country?
He's in the UK as well, but obviously they can be shipped. It's only copper.
Oh my God, no! I probably know some people in the UK that probably get it for me.
That's really awesome. What is this inventor using them for, may I ask?
He actually does magic tricks with them. He actually sits on them and puts sparks out of his hands and stuff.
Oh, I love that! I have a picture of me doing something like that in a science museum. I forget what they call those balls with the lightning inside.
The plasma balls.
Yeah. Go ahead.
A question for Junior. Junior, this is just a question for you based on my own experience. Yeah. The spiritual world, the entities that you may be seeing, right? From my awakening point of view, a lot of us understand this to be a recreation. We're talking about timelines now, where we've done this before. So, for example, deja vu is a memory of you actually being here before, for example. So what are the chances that these spirits, these entities, are actually old timelines of us that are still playing out in another vibration? Not actually forming from energy itself, but they're already existing and they are alive, so to speak, but in a different timeline. How would that sound to you? Would that sound feasible in any way?
Actually, what you're trying to describe is a irrelevant lapse of different dimensions at one time, because we're we're us in this dimension, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, that our dimensions can't overlap with another one to where we exist as well, but just in a different form. So if they can overlap, if they kind of sense that, okay, maybe they're the ghost to us and we're the spirit to them.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So that's kind of what you're bringing up to. Well, to us, you know, paranormal people, that there are 17 different realms in just Earth alone that splits in half. And that's why a lot of people have deja vu. Like, hey, you know what? I've been here before. I just can't think about it. A lot of them have what they call dream state power, where they can actually dream of what's going to happen in the future. And to them, it feels like deja vu and they don't remember a thing.
That's some of the things that have happened to a lot of us who have awoken. We've been given access to future memories as well as past memories. So this is where I talk about timelines and doing this before, and the realities and mergers and all these kind of things, because there's another understanding where we have, which is that that doing this before, and we've got a feeling, this is from an awakened point of view, that we're walking on top of all these timelines at the moment, and that's why people are having more paranormal experiences right now than ever they have done before, and it is quite hype at the moment. And there seems to be all these other examples of things happening within the sky where people are seeing lots of ships now, for example, and people are saying, I've got people going, that's us from the future, you know. All these things all come into that one comparison there, where it's the timelines and that merger point, what you're talking about there, the realms, all the realms, and we seem to be in all of them at one time, and it's just our consciousness that decides that, isn't it?
Yes. So it's actually your subconscious that actually controls your reality. So it's really, you know, when you've become awakening, you've actually tapped into your subconscious, so you can actually split physical and, you know, reality and non-reality, and just form them into one gender, and just be like, you know what, this is real, this is not real, but we're just going to go ahead and walk this straight line right between both.
No, that's quite cool, because some of us, what we've seen was basically the breakdown of reality itself, in front of us. And this is just not my personal, this is others who've done this. And it was like we could see through the very layers of fabric of the reality. So we could see through each layer into like a different time. So we could see something else happening beyond that layer, and then we could see something else happening beyond that layer. It was so basically it's like we were seeing through time itself. Does that make any sense to you in a way?
You're actually talking about time looping, which I've only heard stories of certain people actually do that, to where they've actually like taken a nap and they time jumped in their mind, and they've gone to a different point of time, and where they do coexist, but it's like it's that doppelganger rule falls in effect. You know, if you see yourself in another timeline or see yourself in life in general, you cease to exist at all points.
That's quite a good point, because I had a vision, a dream, or whichever way you want to call it, a memory, where I was actually taken into the body of another version of me, but the other version of me actually seen me coming into the body and actually went, rah! And as he went rah, I went rah, and woke up from that vision, that dream. It was quite a surreal experience. So it basically cancelled everything out then. It's weird. Yeah, very weird.
Quite so. But this whole idea that weather could affect paranormal incident, I find it really, really, really intriguing. And think there's probably a lot more to it than meets the eye, for sure. That charge of static electricity when a thunderstorm rolls through. I have to tell you, I really like that feeling. I don't mind the little hair standing up. I like it. I dig it. I've also heard that meditation, you know, changing your brainwave state can help you have either extraterrestrial communication or otherworldly communication, other dimensional. In other words, we don't really know where any of these beings come from, even if they claim to come from somewhere or other. We don't know if they're telling the truth. We don't, maybe they've watered down their answers to something we might be able to understand. And I think a lot about in the mid 1950s, just was writing about this. First, I was writing about Valiant Thor, who showed up in the United States around 1955 with an entourage allegedly from Venus. That was his story, from the planet Venus, come here to help the United States government and military lead the nation away from nuclear proliferation into the paths of peace and spiritual ascension. That was what Valiant Thor was allegedly presumably up to, should he have existed. And then there's a lot of spin-off articles about that, a lot of activity going on in the mid-1950s before this UFO cover-up machine really got full steam ahead underway. And as a byproduct of UFO cover-up, there was cover-up of ghosts and ESP. And as a child growing up in the 1960s, 70s, et cetera, on up, I remember how television treated UFO, with a rare exception. Somebody like Rod Serling could get away with introducing the topic UFOs. But now if you look at television offerings today, whether it's any of the mainstream network channels or say History Channel, other channels that have very, very wide viewerships, but also independent channels on YouTube and films made and distributed on Amazon, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these platforms that exist out there, Hulu, et cetera, movie distribution sites. There's so many ways now to stream video, and so many people are making video that on the one hand, a lot of these truths really are incontrovertible. It's a for sure thing that something's going down, but also there's so much content that maybe it gets lost. There's so many trees in the forest, people just get lost in that forest of information. So it's refreshing to hear firsthand accounts from both of you gentlemen, Barrie-jon Bauer and Junior Estrada, to different kinds of experiences, but that are bridged because they are both classified as paranormal phenomenon, for better or for worse, as are UFO phenomena. But because for the most part, it's hard to talk about this stuff with regular everyday people. They throw up barriers about, well, you're bonkers, you're raving mad, you're barking. That's what they would say in the United Kingdom. Over here, they say, you're crazy, you're loony, you're Looney Tunes. You're not playing with the full deck. You're one sandwich short of a picnic, all that stuff. And now the Pentagon says, well, maybe they didn't say maybe, said, yeah, those films were real. The Navy pilots did see craft capable of performing high-speed maneuvers, stopping on a dime. There's just so much information. We're being bombarded with it all the time. And thank goodness for personal experiences, because in my opinion, that's something we can trust. Yeah. Or am I wrong?
No, Gene, you're absolutely right. Personal experience is the only way forward. And you see all this stuff, and like I say, people are putting their own accounts out there. They're putting their own videos. They're putting their stuff out there. But then you've just got the doubters who will just go automatically, oh, that's fake, or that's fake. And even though myself, I know that I've taken the pictures myself of some of the things that I have, and I've shown people, and they go, where did you get that from? That's fake. And it's like, I took it myself. It's not fake. It's 100% real. And they just won't get that. They will not accept that it is real, even though you're telling them and you're showing them. And it's sad because that's all come from the misdirection from the governments and from everything else that's been put out there. So people can't believe anymore. They don't know what to believe anymore. And, we're coming forward and we're giving our personal experience. These personal experiences have cost us a lot. As I said, cost us our lives in some senses. So we're not saying it for the fun of it. This has been painful. We don't want to be saying it, but it's the fact that we have to, because it's important. It needs to be heard.
I couldn't agree more, which is why I have this show, Taboo Topics with Gene Broida, broadcast every Sunday night, 7 and 9 p.m. on Eastern. in Eastern Time on my YouTube channel and tabootopics.life/shows and simulcast on Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Joined with me here on this May 17th, 2020 episode of Taboo Topics with Gene Broida is the excellent Junior Estrada and the equally excellent Barrie-jon Bauer. Junior, are you in the, what part of the nation are you, at least in terms of a quadrant? I don't mean to pin you down here, but.
Southern Texas to be exact.
There we go. So we have world ranging guests from Southern Texas in the United States. I'm in the heartland of the United States. And Barrie-jon, where the heck are you? You're way far away from us.
I'm in a little place called the Forest of Dean in the UK.
What's it called? The Forest of
Dean.
Dean? How do you spell that?
Dean. Dean.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Forest
D
of
for
Dean.
D for Dog, E for Echo, A for Alpha, N for November. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a place called Gloucestershire.
Well, I've heard of that. I just didn't know how to pronounce it.
not a lot of you do, actually. It's quite funny. Do you want to say it for me?
Gloucestershire.
You've done all right.
Gloucestershire. How's this? Worcester.
That's
How'd I do? Is that right? Worcester.
Yeah, that's right.
Not Worcester. Not Worcester. It's not Worcester. By the way, does your place have its own sauce? Because Worcester has a sauce.
No, we don't. No, we don't. No.
What's your claim to fame?
What's our claim to fame here? EMF, the band, the group called EMF. Do you remember them? You're unbelievable. That one?
European, like a singing group.
Yeah, singing group, yeah.
Okay.
They come from here, yeah.
EMF.
Mm.
Well, cool.
But that's probably what we got.
Yeah. What's shaking down there in Southern Texas?
Quarantine.
Yeah. How's that? How are you liking that?
No, actually, I'm an essential employee, so I get to go to work every day, which kind of sucks. I'd like a day off, but apparently that's not going to happen.
When it rains, it storms or something like that, right?
Yeah, when it rains, it pours.
When it rains, it pours. What about you, Barrie-jon? I blush to ask because I know it's going to open a can of worms, but what's your daily life like over there?
Look, for me, it's a scamdemic in my eyes. And
thank you very much. Plandemic, I've heard it called as well.
Yeah. It is. There is a virus. Don't get me wrong. So I don't want people to start shouting and saying that I'm not caring, because I do.
Ditto.
I'm not falling into the fear. I'm not falling into the trap. And I've been walking. I've been keeping my distance from people. I always do that anyway. Where I live, it's in the middle of the forest, so it's quite easy to do what we need to do. So I just spend my time walking, meditating, and just trying to trust this journey a little bit, Gene, because we're coming into some really crazy times, and it's trying to be mindful of what's actually happening and trying to understand it in its fullest, and not trying to get too worried or too caught up in all the chaos that is actually happening around the world right now. It's scary if you delve into it too much and you fall into their brainwashing trap, and I'm trying not to do that, and I refuse to do that, to be honest. We just need to get to the root of the problem. That's what I look at.
The scary part for me, and this is all I'll say about it, but the scary part for me is the past plans made in anticipation of this event and future plans, assuming that this event will stay dire forever, basically, forever and ever, and that it justifies changing everybody's around the world's lifestyles and the way we do things and having to prove we're healthy. This is unprecedented and shocking. It's shocking to me. It's another taboo topic. Truthers are being banned from social media, right and left, for even talking about stuff like options, natural immunity, taking your chances on getting sick and getting better. Most people get sick and get better. That's all I'm saying. We could spend a whole show talking about this, and I do talk about this on other shows, but being mostly a paranormal. But remember how we talked about the UFO cover-up has set the stage for the government to do elaborate cover-ups, but also for the public. Many people in the public, probably still a significant minority of people, have a profound distrust in government because we know we've been lied to for so long about so many things. And so to call it a pandemic, a scamdemic, it's very easy for me, to see that when I see the real numbers as versus the numbers used to plan policy. The numbers used to plan policy don't stand up. The real numbers suggest planning should be scrapped. And we basically go back to the way it was before when nobody was panicked. There's no reason to panic. There's nothing to panic over. People have always gotten sick and died. This is what's astonishing to me is how, and I bought it at first. I bought it, and I'm a reporter. I reported it faithfully, but not no more. Not no more, because it's very obvious now that the leadership, much of the leadership, is not responding to facts, not adjusting policy with new facts. They have decided on a best course of action, like it or not, full steam ahead, and it doesn't look good for civil liberties. That's what I have to say about that. So more power to you, Junior, if you are providing essential services. But my heart goes out not only to people who die of disease, whatever that disease is, but my heart goes out to people deemed non-essential by their governments, by their societies. Deemed non-essential, and now you don't have the right to make a living. You have to live on the government dole. I think that's appalling.
The way I saw it when it first happened is that a lot of people were complaining, okay, we're getting stuck to work from home, but that just proves to us that, okay, a lot of the jobs that are out there right now can be done from the comfort of your house. You just choose not to be there.
That's right on. That's totally true. A lot of employers are realizing the work that employees are doing now from home. We didn't want to have them do it before because it wasn't the way we did it. So there's the status quo, but also we didn't trust them. I think this is really something on the employer's mind. We didn't trust them to work at home when they would flake off at home. And there are companies that build software to track metrics, employee performance metrics. Okay, so these are the numbers that bosses use to justify firing people. They weren't pulling their weight. They had to go. Okay, performance metrics. This is what they use at performance reviews, right? 30-day, 60-day, 90-day performance reviews, 6 month, whatever. So if you don't pull your weight, you're out. And bosses are realizing, wow, we can save on cubicle rent and telephony. We can outsource our office. We can distribute it out to people's homes. Their printers are going to print out the stuff, not our printers. You know, their telephone bill will pay the telephony, the internet hookup, not ours. And all of a sudden, their expenses go down, corporate expenses go down. Employees actually are happier working from home. Many studies have shown for a long time, as long as they have the tools to do their work from home. Right? That's a big critical, is that you got to empower your employees with the right tools to be able to work from home. And not every job will be able to do that. But concerning also to a lot of people is that at the same time as employees are being sent home to work, if they can, otherwise non-essential employees not working, at the same time, rise of artificial intelligence capable or enabled machinery. So robotic machinery in warehouses, and to take the place of human beings who have been sent home as maybe non-essential, or even if they're essential, let's replace them with machines.
No, it's a scary prospect, Gene, and you know that again. There's a lot of us who are said that we were given access to the future Akashic records, as what it's called, you know, future memories, and we know that something bad is possibly in the agenda right now. And what we've got to understand is that yes, one topic might be UFOs, one might be the government, one might be this, but it's all one part of one big thing. Yeah, it's not an individual section. It's all part of one big puzzle, and that's what the people need to put together right now, from vaccinations through to what the governments are doing, to what the chemtrails. They've got to not just focus on that one now and understand that it's a bigger picture. And what I say is, would humans do this to humans? That's all I leave. That's what I say.
Well, that's why I keep saying it's not a human intelligence. It's this reptilian intelligence that really doesn't like humans all that well. That's driving apparent humans, people that look like humans, to do inhumane things, very wide scale. And I think it was you, Barrie-jon, said earlier that the New World Order agents are slowly moving forward, but it looks to me like there's an all points sweeping, like a net is being drawn together, and lots of things are happening all at the same time, under the distraction of being kept at home, under the being prevented to assemble, to gather, and to be outdoors looking up, for example. So 5G rolling out with no opposition, and draconian laws being crafted with no opposition, and anybody who does oppose on the steps of the State House is going to may well be arrested. I know that in Kentucky, here in the United States, some judge in Louisville, which is at the north of the state, ordered ankle monitors, GPS ankle monitors for scofflaws who refuse to stay home under lockdown. And they are associated with either living with someone who allegedly tested positive, if you believe these tests, and is consorting with infected people, and they're going out infecting other people. Well, somebody in favor of herd immunity would say, good, it should go out and expose people to the pathogen. Most of them will get a little bit sick, if at all, and get better. But the people writing these draconian laws are saying, shame on you for threatening the greater good, even when the numbers show you've got hundreds of cases, not even 1,000 cases, fewer deaths, a handful of deaths, 5 to 10 deaths in states of 7.5 million people here in the United States. We have big states. And the numbers just don't add up. They talk about, the number of cases has tripled. Yeah, to 900 from 300 in a state with 7.5 million people. It's not that I don't care. I was going to say, who cares? Well, it's tragic when people lose their lives, but more people die of lung cancer from smoking. Yeah. Let's get a grip. Let's get a grip.
Let's get a grip, yeah. No, it's that fear factor again that they've done it all on, and and the people are fearful and they are scared right now, and you can understand why they are, but they're the ones of us who are not conforming to it. They do look at us like we're dirt, and it's like we're the bad people. It's like, you're going to spread this. It's like, we're not. You've got to understand, we're not the bad guys. It's that divide. What they're doing again, Gene, is causing a divide. Yeah, another divide of the people in another way, where we can't unite. So in every single walk of life, as humans, we're divided in some single way. Be it now the virus, be it the religion, be it what trainers you wear. Yeah,
and that same, fear factor is a very interesting expression. I'm glad you brought it up, Barrie-jon, because Junior and Christina Estrada were faced with a fear factor, this entity in their house, a disembodied entity in their house, and they chose not to play the fear game either, and embraced an entity as basically a welcome addition to the household. So how right on is that? That's awesome.
Yeah. No, it is all that. It is that fear. It's this reality. I'll call it a reality. I'll try to use that word the most as I possibly can. It's not earth. It's not. I use it as a reality. So, do we manifest based on how we feel or what we're doing? Is that possible? I think that it is. So if we feel fear, then maybe we're going to experience the fear. I'm still trying to work.
Well, fear definitely beats us down. It beats down the immune system. Yeah. And any energy tends to attract like energy. That's a rule of metaphysics. So not saying there's no disease, not saying it's not serious. All of the above is true, but do you really want to live your life in fear of whatever? And I joke about it's a good day if a meteor hasn't come streaking through the atmosphere and plunged through the roof of the house. Because frankly, the odds of being struck by a meteor are just as valid as being struck by a car or being a random victim of violence. You just see what I'm saying? That if you want to dwell in fear, there's plenty to be afraid of. But who wants to dwell in fear? And at one time, Americans, and I expect Brits too, did not live in fear. Very, I was going to say proud people, patriotic, and maybe all that's true, but self-sufficient, I think, is really more to the point. People who have the confidence born of self-sufficiency. So there isn't that much that's genuinely unknown. There's a surety that with the sunrise tomorrow, there'll be food on the table, there'll be occupation and preoccupation, vocation, that all is right in the world. This assurance that all is right in the world. In the United States, many people have not had that kind of assurance since JFK's assassination. So I don't want to end on a negative note. What I do want to end on is by saying that I am so grateful to have Barrie-jon Bauer and Junior Estrada as my guest panelists on the excellent May 17th, 2020 episode of Taboo Topics with Jean Broida, broadcast 7 to 9 Eastern on my YouTube channel and my website, tabootopics.life/shows, simulcast on Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com. At this point, I thank my guests for being here for a couple hours. And I just want you to know this show would not be possible without your contributions. And I'm so grateful that you carved out the time to spend mindfully talking about taboo topics that really I find fascinating. And I hope all viewers everywhere will find equally fascinating, because we all are just people having an experience. We're all part of this matrix and in a dimensionality. We're spiritual people having a physical reality. So Barrie-jon Bauer, take a few moments here, take as long as you wish. Tell people about projects you're into, your interests, and how people interested could contact you, please.
Well, as I said, my journey is a little bit different. I'm what is called a star seed, or what is known as a source seed. I was given memories of the future as well as the past, which was of my previous lives. So my previous life, I have managed to work out exactly what it was and who it was. And from this, I've been on a journey, and I've actually located some things that actually match up with my previous life as well. I'm in the process now, within the next year, of hopefully bringing what I have found into light. It's been a project of great magnitude, and it still isn't finished. But I hope that when this is finished, what I have to bring out to the public, because this will be for the whole of the world in general, once this is seen, I hope that it can give the people the evidence and the truth that they need to make a choice. Because as you kindly said just now, Jean, we've had our choices taken away from us. Yeah, and right now the people need to be given the biggest choice of all, and that's to understand what we are and what's going on right now. They need to be given that truth and that understanding, and the biggest truth of all, they need to understand that we have been lied to. The problem we have is proving that we have been lied to, and what I have and what my journey is about to do, I hope, is to prove that on a mass level. So let's just keep my fingers crossed. I've got my fingers crossed. You know, it's going to happen within the next year. And if it does, it will be seen by a lot of people.
You got a project in mind? Do you want to talk about it?
Well, the project is basically my previous life was as a Templar. And basically the information and the stuff that, or the things that I've been given during my experience, was actually the location and where basically the missing vaults and the missing churches of the Templars, which is basically the Da Vinci Code. If you ever seen the film with Tom Hanks, the Da Vinci Code, well, basically I've not solved it. I was shown it. It's all to do with, as I say, my awakening. It's all to do with my previous lives, and if it is what we think it is, because it is, this is part of a bigger story. As I say, there's lots of others who are combining into this story. If it is what we think it is, it's going to make a really, really big difference. Exactly, it's going to make a big difference.
Well, I'm familiar with the Knights Templar, and it doesn't surprise me to hear that you had a past life as a Knight Templar. And I wish you the best with this project. And given the synchronicity of the multiverse, I would imagine, having put out the energy to find people to join your project, that you absolutely will.
Mm-hmm. No, I haven't.
It's your destiny.
I believe that it is. There's a lot more to my story yet, but like I say, just me saying so at the moment doesn't give it the credit that it needs. Yeah, it needs to be proved. And me just talking, like the many of us, talking doesn't work anymore. We need to give something physical. And if we can give something physical to the people, then that's going to be a game changer. That's what we hope.
Well, I wish you the best possible outcomes with that. Junior Estrada, how can viewers of Taboo Topics with Gene Broida find your projects? What are you up to? And how can they contact you?
Well, they can actually contact us through Facebook or Instagram. All they have to do is look us up. As far as what it is, names do go Junior and Christina Estrada, so that's an easy way to find us. And
it's the letter N, yeah?
It is the letter
between your names.
Yes.
Awesome.
And new project wise, me and Christina, we're just currently working on our new show that's on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network as well. We stream every Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time. You can find us there, YouTube, Instagram.
What's the name of your show?
The name of our show is actually Angels and Outlaws.
So talk about it.
Our show is a fairly new show that was created to show the love and support of my passion before ghost hunting is music. So we talk to musicians, actors, the whole 9 yards, give them the insights, talk about what they're doing now these days and what do they got coming in the future.
Ooh, that sounds totally groovy. Yeah. Totally tune-inable. And when does that go?
We've had the first 2 episodes with 2 famous people already. We've had one with a female metal front band out of Tennessee and a Grammy Award winner as of last night.
Wow. Props to you. Props. There's my high five. You rock. That is so awesome. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But, what you know can help. All right?
Yeah.
And I am your host, Gene Broida, here on Taboo Topics with Gene Broida. I do write regularly as a contributor to the dailyconspiracy.com. Please visit my website, lightwork111.com, and feel free to email me, gene@lightwork111.com. I have had some comments on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Head over there right now to Taboo Topics with Gene Broida and click the little subscribe button, and there's a little bell next to an alarm if you want to get alerts on the live broadcasts, which is 7 to 9 p.m. on Sunday nights in Eastern Time. Be a founder over there. I got an archive of, it's a playlist actually of all the shows since we've been broadcasting this year. And we're getting a sizable number now. It's a real thrill. And I'm so pleased to have such high caliber guests. I don't require that guests be famous. It would be nice, but it's certainly no requirement because we all have something to contribute to the story, in my opinion. And it's really refreshing to hear lots of different points of views. That's what I'm in it for. And I invite all viewers as well to check out my book on Amazon, Unknown Objects, the Top 10 U.S. UFO Cases. It is a free read on Kindle Unlimited. You can buy it as an ebook. It makes a great gift. And you can also get it as a paperback. And if you contact me, Jean at lightwork111.com, I'd be happy to autograph and seal with a kiss your very own copy. So with all that in mind, just got a couple of minutes left. Any last thoughts, Junior Estrada?
No, Gene, I just really appreciate you inviting me to be on your show. And it was an honor and a pleasure of mine to host this with you.
Well, I'm really happy that you could join the show here. I loved your contribution, and it's given me a lot to think about. Barrie-jon, closing thoughts?
Well, just like to say thank you to Junior, thank you to you. And, I just hope the world and the people can start to hear our messages and start to listen to the likes of you, the likes of me, and the likes of all the others who are really reaching out now around the world, who are trying to say that there's much more to this place than what meets the eye, and it's not to be scared of, it's to be embraced. And if people can embrace that, then we're in for a marvelous ride. But we got some trials and tests to come in the meantime. But I just wish the people all the best. That's all I do.
Well, I do appreciate your being here, Barrie-jon, and you as well, Junior. And I have to say, as far as fear factor goes, don't buy into it if you possibly can. But when you are afraid, and all kinds of things make us afraid, let's face it, from when we're little kids on up, because there's a little kid in all of us that never goes away. When you are afraid, reach out to people in your community. Reach out to people who would understand. And we three are here for you if nobody else is. Take heart that you're not alone in the multiverse, and open yourself to the possibilities. I put that to you. Close your mind to the fear, open yourself to the possibilities, see if your life doesn't change for the better. And all that said, thank you again, Barrie-jon Bauer. Thank you again, Junior Estrada. Looking forward to having your wife, Christina, on a very near future show. And viewers of Taboo Topics with Jean Broida, that is our take on it for this Sunday, May 17th, 2020 show. Thank you for listening in. And please visit my Taboo Topics YouTube channel. We are broadcast through the tabootopics.life/shows website and on Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com. Thank you guys very much. And to all viewers near and dear, near and far, see you next week. Over and out.
That one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment.